It's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, you want to rock and roll? Driving on the highway, going to a show. Stopping on the byway, playing rock and roll. Getting round, getting stoned, getting beat up, break a bone, getting high, getting shook. As for your folks, it's harder than it looks. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's easy to do one night stands. Try playing a rock and roll band. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll.
Good evening, race fans. I'm your host, Caden Reif, and welcome to another installment of the 2006 season of the NASCAR Coca-Cola Cup Series. We stay down south. We are here in Australia for race number 8 out of 36, or excuse me, 7. That'd be race 7. Here from the Cashies 400 from Calder Park once again on the outfield road course for this 7th round of the Cup season as we take you to the track for your starting lineup in tonight's race. Starting on pole for today is going to be the 12 Orion Newman taking over pole with Tony Stewart in the 42 car, joining him on the front row. Looking down the rest of the starting grid, it's familiar faces up front at a road course like this. Robbie Gordon will be joined by Jeff Gordon. It'll be 3rd and 4th, the 31 and 24. Kevin Harvick will be in P5 in the 20, and Bobby Labonte in 6. Couple of Joe Gibbs cars in that 3rd row. 7th will be Ricky Hendrick in the 5, and Brian Vickers will be in P8. 9th belongs to Jimmy Johnson, and Boris Said in P10. Dale Earnhardt Jr. will be the 11th place car in the 88, and his teammate Casey Kane side by side with him in 12th. 13th will be Kurt Busch in the 01, and 14th Scott Wimmer in the 23. John Andretti will be in 15th position, and Jamie McMurray 16th. John Wood in 17th, and 18th belonging to Greg Biffle. P19 will be Jack Sprague, and 20th Kyle Busch. 21st will be Carl Edwards, and 22nd Mike Bliss in the 81. 23rd will be Casey Atwood, and Christian Elder in 24th. 25th, Regan Smith, and 26th will be Tony Raines in the 74, Matt Kenseth in 27th, and Ricky Rudd 28th. 29th will be the 28 car of Mark Martin. Jeff Burton will be in 30th, and Todd Bodine will be in 31st, joined by Jeff Green in 32nd. 33rd will be Scott Riggs in the 57, and Elliott Sadler will be side by side with him in 34th. 35th will be Sterling Marlin in the 22, and Hank Parker Jr. in P36. 37th belongs to Ron Hornaday Jr. and Morgan Shepherd in 38th. And the last car in a shortened field with the pit lane at this racetrack, it'll be the 39th place driver of Martin Truex Jr. in the 8. It'll be 48 laps here from Calder Park's outfield road course, and we take you to the track for the most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines!
Short half a pace lap from the starting grid here to the line as 39 stock cars roar to life. And of course, an interesting race. Of course, it is the first time there's been 3 road courses on the schedule for the Cup Series, and Calder Park the first of these 3, and a brand new racetrack that these drivers will have to navigate here tonight.
Correction. It'll be the first time we've had 3 road courses on the schedule since we had Riverside in 1989.
That would be correct, as a matter of fact. Excuse me for the mistake there. Ryan Newman in the 12 car from pole here today. Going to take us to the green flag as he will be side by side with Tony Stewart in the 42. As we mentioned, a short pit lane at this racetrack, so just 39 cars in the field here tonight. Pace car peeling off to the left there as we are all set to go. Long wait to the restart box, but coming up on it here with the 12 and 42 on the front row, and we are green here from Calder Park. Robbie Gordon, a fabulous start there, gets the jump on the 2 leaders, trying to take it 3 wide for the top spot into turn number 1. Long run down into turn 1. Contact between the 42 and 12 just about. 31 and 12 for the lead coming out of the first corner. Up the hill and towards the second of the 2 chicanes, as it is Robbie Gordon on the inner line against Ryan Newman, the pole sitter. And right away, the 31 car, winner of the oval race, takes the lead from the 12 of Ryan Newman. Everybody clean in the back as we stay green, with the 31 leading the opening lap here from Calder Park's outfield road course. Down the front stretch, it's 31, 12, 42. Kevin Harvick jumps up into 4th, and Ricky Hendrick will be the last car in the top 5 as we head down the front stretch now. It is a long, long front straightaway at this racetrack and a long run towards turn 1. Jeff Gordon putting a little bit of a bumper to the back of the 5 and got into his teammate quite a lot coming out of the corner there. Hendrick trying to block the 24 off. Side by side as they head over the hill.
A lot of the drivers this week have described the Calder outfield course as somewhere in between the flowing nature of Watkins Glen and the technical circuit that is Sonoma.
That they have, and it has been interesting to see them navigate this racetrack this weekend. And of course, worth noting that this racetrack, by far the shortest road course on the schedule, just under 1.5 miles. It's around 1.4 miles this place, so it's a very quick lap time here, just over a minute. Hence the longer race length in both Sonoma and Watkins Glen. And as a result, means that it's a quick lap time around here. Not a lot of corners on the racetrack, but some faster corners, some flowing corners, some tight corners. The 2 chicanes on the back end of the circuit, really difficult to navigate. We've seen a lot of people go off the track. It's also very narrow, this racetrack, not a lot of width to work with, so it's difficult to keep your car pointed in the right direction and on the racing surface, especially as a race goes on.
I mean, we even have a portion on one of these chicanes in which you could end up overdriving it, and suddenly you found yourself back where you started.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a little bit of that this weekend. Drivers spinning off the hill off to the right side of the first chicane, and you end up kind of over where the circuit goes, headed towards turn 1. It hasn't been really much of a danger spot given how wide the grass is over there on the right, as you'll see up here. There's a lot of room to work with, and the drivers are thankful for that, but would help. And issues on the racetrack, the 74, that is Tony Raines for base, having a bit of a vibration early, reporting over the radio, in the 29th position at the moment. So early in the running, having some issues on his race car.
Not surprised to see some early mechanical failures here. Once again, these cars were basically taken out of a shipping container and brought to the track without much practice or a shakedown in general.
Absolutely. It's been a very up and down week, and of course not a lot of time on the racetrack for these guys. They were given ample practice sessions when available, but it's been tough for them to learn this place and just get in and acclimatized with it. And of course, we've seen a lot of the premier road course drivers in this field up front to start it. Of course, Robbie Gordon, the 31, ever the fast face at a road course, you're early race leader in the long way in front of Ryan Newman, who sits in second. Tony Stewart in third, also a very fast road course driver. Kevin Harvick in the 20 in fourth. Ricky Hendrick making a showing up in the top 5, and of course Jeff Gordon 6th. And Boris said in his first start for Haas CNC this season in the 00, he pulls that car up into the 7th position. So running well for that team to start off this day. Kurt Busch, who's been at work with Brian Vickers in the 44 for the 9th spot for a couple of laps, trying to make an overtake here. And he's up a spot past that CarQuest Chevrolet.
And always a good idea to bet on an Andretti at a road course.
Yes, absolutely. The 20 running 11th. Had a good couple of races to start this year. Hasn't been too shabby in his new team as we continue to wind through the early laps in this race, mostly single file. Again, as expected. As we mentioned, this track's so narrow for most of the laps, so it is very difficult to find a way around your fellow driver at this place. And everybody managing to keep it clean so far as we run through the early laps. 5 laps completed as we start on lap number 6. Robbie Gordon continuing to try and pull a gap in the lead. Him and Ryan Newman both a little wide in the chicane that time, but keeping it on the racetrack as the 31 sits comfortably up front.
You know, this race was originally scheduled to be about 42 to 45 laps, but NASCAR had extended it just a few laps after they saw how quick the practice times were.
That they had, and also wary of potential fuel mileage issues that they wanted to make sure they avoided and make sure that drivers had ample opportunity for their second pit stop that we potentially see. Hard to say exactly what the fuel run is in the Cup cars, but Busch was around 20 laps, and when it was near 40 laps, NASCAR was thinking that they were wanting to extend that, and they did prior to this race, so 48 laps instead the race length going into this one.
I doubt any of the fans over here are going to be mad at more racing, though.
Absolutely. Kevin Harvick at work with Tony Stewart. Stewart trying to hold off his previous ride
he
goes off the racetrack, and here comes Harvick to pass for third. And he is right on through on that Bass Pro Shops Dodge and up into the podium positions.
So easy to make a mistake going into that chicane.
It's a lot longer than you think. The second chicane is a much easier corner to get through, and you kind of just sling it through there. Here's Jeff Gordon trying to make a pass on Ricky Hendrick, his teammate, for the 5th spot after getting into him earlier. But regardless, it's difficult to get through that corner, and there's a pretty long chute between those two turns, so it can be a challenge to get yourself set up for the second of those two 90-degree corners. And we've seen plenty of people kind of run it a little wide, not too much to be a safety concern, but kind of just running it off the racetrack and trying to keep it on the tarmac. It's a challenge in that corner, deceptively difficult in its simplicity. And we've seen people run off here and there in that set of turns. Usually already running it fairly wide, trying to make the racetrack as wide as they can and use a bit of the curb. We've seen a lot of these guys up front do that so far. And just, again, trying to keep it on the road. So easy to run it off the racetrack here, as said a couple times now, deceptively challenging this racetrack despite its short lap length.
But a short lap length means there's very little margin for error. You make a mistake, you don't have 10 corners to recover that.
Yeah, absolutely. Only a handful of corners on this racetrack, so it is definitely difficult to mitigate the damage when you make a mistake like that. But talking about mistake-free, Robbie Gordon still comfortably up in front of the 12 who won the pole, didn't lead the opening lap after the 31, took it 3 wide into turn 1.
He also already has won a trophy here at Calder Park just last week.
That he did, the 31 car victor of the oval race, as we mentioned early on in the running. Trying to go for his second win of the season early on, and Chevrolet have brought some rocket ships into the early portion of this 2006 season. And Childress taking full advantage of that with their 31 car running comfortably up front in this one, as Newman trying to track down that Singular Wireless Chevrolet who sits up front. Kevin Harvick holding on to third, it's Stewart in fourth, and Gordon closing in on the 42 machine for the 5th position. ran his best lap of the race last time by a 101.736 from that 24 car.
So another thing I'm sure Goodyear is very happy to hear is that this outfield road course is a much newer surface than the Thunderdome.
That it is, and you can tell based on just the track color, it's a lot darker on the main racing surface on this racetrack than it is on the oval, and it has been resurfaced a little more recently. Damage on the back of the 5. Ricky Hendrick believe he might have gotten ran into a couple of laps ago. I believe it was on lap number 9. As we'll get a look here. And we mentioned it's such a long front stretch at this racetrack and a hard braking zone into turn 1 that's unfamiliar for most stock car drivers. And yeah, Boris said just overcooked it and got straight into the back of Ricky Hendrick. He's lucky he didn't miss the corner. In fact, used the 5 as the rest of his brakes to get into that turn. So a bit of front end damage on that 00 Dr. Pepper machine. Said running in 7th and Ricky Hendrick in 6th.
Ricky Hendrick has just been banged around today.
Definitely
got hit by his teammate, hit by Boris said. He's been banged around all of this road trip. He got turned around lap 2 by Kurt Busch last week.
Yeah, not really a whole lot of his fault, but that car seems no worse for wear despite the big dent on the back end. So he continues to run in the 6th position, well said, going off the track there and falling into the clutches of Labonte, who's going to go to the inside to try to pass him for P7. Couldn't keep the nose underneath. And it has been so tight between these guys. Here's Jeff Gordon. Maybe a little tap to the back bumper of the 42 of Tony Stewart in that last corner there. That would be turn number 6. Trying to catch up to that 42 car, make a pass for 4th. Meanwhile, Newman still running slightly faster laps than the race leader, Robbie Gordon. Could be a repeated tale from the Busch race that was ran on Saturday with Newman trying to catch up to that 31 car. It was Ambrose trying to catch up to Kyle Busch in the Busch race, and Busch narrowly held him off, despite leading all but 2 laps of that race and all the laps that weren't pit stop laps in the Busch Series event. That race was a lot closer than the lap lead counter entailed. And of course, we saw Ambrose get within close enough to knock on the back door of the 43. That was in turn number 6. That he had gotten to the back of him a couple times, but couldn't quite complete the overtake despite how close he was. Might we see more of that today? Robbie Gordon, who's led every lap so far after the lap 1 overtake on the 12 of Newman, who is still trying to track him down.
If you're looking for an exciting battle, Newman and Gordon is probably up there for a combination.
12 still has to catch that 31, who is holding on to the lead by a fairly wide margin right now. These two have checked out in front of Kevin Harvick, who runs in 3rd. That's another thing we've seen at this racetrack. Despite its simplicity and short lap, we've seen a lot of gaps between drivers in this race as well as the entirety of the Busch race on Saturday. The field spreads out a lot at this racetrack.
The other thing, though, is that you can close gaps very quickly. There's about 3 separate corners at this track where you can gain a half a second on a guy just going into the corner.
That we have seen, and Marcos Ambrose proved that on Saturday's race. Bobby Labonte in the 18 making another overtake. He moves past Boris Said for the 7th position. Said with that little bit of a dent on the front end of his race car after missing turn 1, he moves down to 8th. Under fire from Kurt Busch in the 01 now, who sits just behind him. And the 10th spot belonging to Jimmy Johnson, who just got past his teammate. That's Brian Vickers in the 44 right behind him. Mostly everybody still running around where they started, as we are getting around to just completed a quarter of the race last time by. It'll be 13 laps completed at the stripe for the field this next time through. Stewart a little wide there in turn 1. Was on the back bumper of Harvick, now falls it back towards the clutches of the 24 of Gordon, who's trying to close that gap for 4th.
Another thing to note is that when these cars get really close together and start battling, it slows both cars down quite a bit, which is why you see all this spreading.
Yeah, absolutely. The side-by-side battles really do spread these guys out, and when you get side-by-side, as there's a caution out, yellow flag flying. Uncertain on the cause of this one, as we'll get a look back. So caution comes out right there, looking like it's the 2 of Regan Smith, who is out into the barriers. And seeming like he got shipped by the 43. Yes, he did. That was Kyle Busch, the Busch Series race winner, who sent Regan Smith into the barriers in turn 1. So an early collision brings out a caution, the first yellow flag here in the Cup race. And we are under yellow flag as the leaders take this caution flag. Robbie Gordon in the 31, your race leader, as we will surely be seeing pit stops this time. That 31 out in first place. Pit road fairly wide here, but we've seen a little bit of collisions in the pits on the Busch race. It's difficult to navigate and get into your pit box here, despite the fact that the pit boxes are a fair amount apart. It's easy to get out, not easy to get in, so we'll see how that goes for the Cup field here. As we are on lap number 15, we'll be taking lap 16 when we pit. The top 5 goes 31, 12, 20, 42, and 24. These guys who have all been up front for the majority of the early portion of this race, and we'll see some closer racing now with the field bunched up thanks to this caution flag. But pit stops yet to come here, as Gordon will lead everyone in on the left here. Heading into the final corner, turn number 9.
Think maybe someone takes a risk and decides to stay out?
We will see. But given that this will cut a pit stop out of this race, I wouldn't be expecting it. Could see 2 tires, though, but we will find out. Robbie Gordon, the 31, leads the field into the pits here, as he will take his 4 tires in fuel. Heading into the pit box on the left here with Newman right behind him. Bit of field spread as we head into the pits here. Of course, everybody keeping their distance under caution at this racetrack, and difficult not to given how much the field shrinks and grows under the yellow flags here. But Robbie Gordon in the 31 into the pits with Newman in the 12, the pole sitter, right in front of him. And there we see a little bit of contact as the 24 and 18 brushing their respective pitters. That was the 20 and 5 that they both got into. 4 tires and fuel for Robbie Gordon, who leaves the pits, your race leader. And the rest of the top 5 exit cleanly. Repairs on the back of the 5 of Ricky Hendrick, who will drop a position to Bobby Labonte to get the back end of his race car fixed. And Said doesn't lose a position to fix the front of his 00. We'll take you to intermission here from Calder Park as Robbie Gordon, the 31, your race leader, led every lap so far in that 31 car. Back from intermission here at Calder Park as we prepare to take the green flag. Robbie Gordon in the 31 car. Led every lap as we mentioned, and he will be your race leader. Top 5 stays the same as it's still Newman, Harvick, Stewart, and Gordon. Labonte picks up a position. He moves into 6th after Ricky Hendrick got some repairs to pull out the dent on the back end of his race car. Boris Said retained 8th, 9th belonging to Kurt Busch, and Jimmy Johnson the last car in the top 10 in that 48 machine. Pace car peeling in, as Gordon will take the field down the long way towards the front stretch restart box. It'll be lap number 18 when we take the green flag here. As everybody getting set to go. Heading towards the box, Robbie Gordon controlling the field, and he takes us to the green.
It was a pretty good launch.
Good launch by
but
Gordon.
Not near as good
Stewart.
as Tony Stewart.
Got a good jump on the 20. Going to look to the inside towards turn 1. Thinks better of it. Going to be patient. 5 got a good start. Went to the outside of the 18. Back end of the top 10. Stacking up. Everybody trying to keep it clean here. And seems as if they will. Labonte and Hendrick side by side for 6th. Jimmy Johnson trying to make an overtake on Said as he moves into the 8th position as Kurt Busch in the 01 went backwards. So Johnson in the 48 up a couple positions. Top 4 or 5 or so under a blanket here as they head back towards the front stretch. Robbie Gordon running back away from the lead. Kurt Busch trying to pick up another position, get back to work on Vickers, who is in 10th right now. Unable to close that gap as they head into turn 1 once more. Said again overshooting turn 1. That's the 9th place car. Vickers closes up, can't get side by side with him. Newman trying to not let the 31 get too far out of his sights. .30 laps to go at the moment. Still a lot of racing left. And Newman very wide there in turn 6. Harvick closing in on him. Everybody's still clean in the back of the field right now. Just trying to find a way to catch up to your fellow foe. And make an opportunity out of nothing. Down the front stretch, as the top 3 split apart quite a ways, and the top 5 all the way back through the rest of the top 10, as a matter of fact. These gigantic gaps that we've seen pretty much all race long. Difficult to close up on each other. Bobby Labonte very wide in turn 1, just about kept it on the tarmac. Looks like Hendrick has damage on the back end again. Not sure if that is residual. Ooh, yeah, I got more help. And again from a teammate. This was Jimmy Johnson in the 48 running into the back of his teammate in turn 1. Ricky
just getting bullied out there.
Just not catching a break. Yeah, that 5 car been battered around all day. It's a miracle that he's kept it on the road despite how much people have been hitting him. Commendable drive so far. Still in 7th. Ahead of the 48, who now has just a little bit of a dent on the front of his race car, and Hendrick, the damage that he had gotten repaired on pit road once again, has a big hole in the back of that race car, thanks in no small part to his teammates here today. Dale Jr. really ambitious under brakes there, trying to catch up to Andretti, who's in 12th in the 21. Everybody else still calm and collected right now, as the top 5 still completely unchanged. It's really just what a racetrack like this does, as Harvick goes off from 3rd. Stewart trying to go around the outside, turns into the inside as they head to the final corner, turn 9. Battle for third as the 42 gets underneath the 20. Here's Jeff Gordon to try to steal away fourth. Couldn't quite do it, but he's got the opportunity heading towards turn one. Harvick trying to go back around the outside on the 42. But Stewart will cover him off. Though he runs a little wide, that opens the door for Harvick to challenge back on the inside. Here comes the 20 back at the 42.
And all the while this is happening, it looks like the 12 is trying to make a run on the 31.
Robbie Gordon still holding the lead by a slim margin. Harvick trying to re-overtake Stewart. And he will do so. No, not quite. Never mind. 42 has a second breath down the backstretch. Bobby Labonte challenging Jeff Gordon for fifth. Harvick now gets past the 42, 18 and 24 for the fifth position, bringing a train of race cars into this battle. Johnson trying to challenge the 5 for P7 again. Hendrick holds him off. Labonte into the top 5. Harvick back to third. A lot of good battling in the middle of this race now. As we're seeing these guys get at each other, Stewart closes in a lot on the 20, managed to not hit his rear bumper, but letting him know he's there. Johnson still working on Hendrick for 7th, who holds him off again. But maybe put a little bit of a bumper to him in the chicane. That's turns 2 and 3. Over the crest and towards 4 and 5. Hendrick holds him off. Thanks to all the battling from third on back, these two leaders, Gordon and Newman, are absolutely gone, and the 12 still looking to close up on Robbie Gordon for first. Not a wide margin that 31 leads by right now. Newman just doing what he can to try to get there for that first position that he lost, on lap number 1. Big gap back to Harvick, who sits third, behind by 4.5 seconds to the race leader, Robbie Gordon. Still close for 4th on back. Tony Stewart backing up the 18 and 24 just a little bit right now. Johnson with a shot to overtake Hendrick. Will not do it just yet. Kurt Busch still trying to work on Vickers for 10th. Vickers holds him off for now. Newman still just so tantalizingly close to the 31, but it's the nature of this racetrack that these tight corners force you farther apart on the straightaways, and it becomes so hard to make an overtake, especially on the front stretch when you would think you'd be so close into turn 1. But that margin grows. Halfway through this race in Calder Park, as Newman, right into the back bumper of Robbie Gordon, the 31, keeps it on the racetrack. Huge damage on the front of the 12, who just ran into the race leader.
It looks like Ryan just got tired of waiting there.
Gordon off the racetrack. Newman trying to close up, although I would imagine he's going to pit here with so much damage on the front of that car. The hood pushed way up. We'll see if Gordon sticks on the track from the lead. Huge damage to the 12 of Newman, who just overcooked it into turn 1. Well, it doesn't look like it's
making him any slower.
Maybe not, but I would imagine he's going to pit to fix it on visibility problems, and he will. So Robbie Gordon, who's got a massive dent on the back of his race car now, stays out to take a huge lead over Kevin Harvick, who sits behind by around 4 seconds. Tough break for the 12, who just overcooked it by a long, long way into turn 1 that time. I thought Robbie Gordon was going to go off the road, but with 2 tires on the grass, managed to stay on the racetrack. No chance for Newman to make the corner there. So the 12 goes into the pits to fix the damage up. And no, he will retire from the race. That will be the end of the 12's day. So Newman out. First DNF here tonight. Robbie Gordon with a ton of damage on the back of his race car. Just kind of limping around right now. His last lap not too terribly fast, although I don't think it's too much aero damage for him. Harvick a long way back in second to his ex-teammate, who did just run a solid lap around what the 20 has been running this entire time, and in fact was 0.5 quicker. So Robbie Gordon looking no worse for wear despite the big damage on the back of his car, though you would imagine his pit stop will be longer as they try to fix it up when he comes in for the pit stop that we are still expecting in this race. He just went off the track a little bit there in the 2 and 3 chicane. But he's got a comfortable margin to Harvick, who sits in second place, with the rest of this top 5 a lot closer than they are to the leader, thanks to Newman taking himself out of this race. Top 10, nice and comfortable right now, as nothing really changing up front at the moment. The top 10, other than Newman, has been pretty much the same group of drivers this entire race. Brian Vickers backing up the top 10. It goes 44 in ascending order, 44.01.00. And now, more damage on the front of Jimmy Johnson, who just ran into the back of the 5 again. That is your points leader, Jimmy Johnson, who now has even more damage in the front end. Might we see him come in to get repairs? Which would be a massive shift up at the top of the standings with the 48, who entered this race with around a 90-point lead over Jeff Gordon, who has been running in front of him this entire race. And Johnson will pit. So the points leader in on a really inopportune time with damage on the front of his race car, and he comes in to get repairs, maybe to retire from the race. We'll see if he ducks out like Newman did. Tough break for him. He ran into the back of his own teammate twice in turn 1 on this run.
Turn 1, it's just Calamity Corner.
Johnson heading into the pits. And he will stay in the race to make this pit stop with 20 laps to go here from Calder Park. Long pit stop here to get the repairs on the 48 machine. They'll take the hood off of it. And Johnson pretty much taken out of this race. So another car dips out of the top 10 after running into the back of a fellow competitor. That promotes the 21 car of John Andretti into the top 10 in the 10th running position. Has had himself a pretty good race here today. Another solid showing for him in that Ford Motorcraft machine. Ricky Rudd missed the corner there, managed to keep it on the road just about from the 17th position. Seeing a lot of guys, maybe a little bit of brake fatigue on their race cars.
Yeah.
And not a surprise given how tough of a braking zone it is into turn 1. 16 has damage. Another car into the pits. It's the 74. Gordon will pit from the lead, so expecting that is going to be a scheduled pit stop. Kevin Harvick in the 20 stays out to hold the lead. And Robbie Gordon, the only member of the top 10 to come in that time.
Do you think maybe when he got hit by the 12, there was some damage to his fuel cell?
I'd say more likely that it was a tire rub on the back of the 31 car, honestly. So Gordon going to come in to take this pit stop and probably get repairs on the back of that 31 machine. The 20 car takes the race lead. And Tony Raines rejoins the racetrack. He's got damage on the back of his car. Compares to him. Mentioned Greg Biffle has a bit of damage on the front of his car, back end of the 40s damage, so that was an incident between those two a handful of laps ago. And Gordon a 19-second pit stop, so his margin for the lead probably going to be cut down thanks to the damage on the back of his car that they had to fix up. 42 comes in, 20 stays out, Harvick's still on the racetrack. Yeah, Robbie Gordon sawed the back bumper of that thing off, so imagining they were fixing up the tire rub on the back of the 31. Harvick still the race leader. Brian Vickers staying out another lap. He's in second for the moment. While the 42 car from second place on the racetrack when he first came in, net P3 at the moment, leads a big group of drivers into these pits. 4 tires and fuel for Tony Stewart and everybody else in the top 5 and 10. Jeff Gordon, Bobby Labonte, also a member of this group that pit. Kevin Harvick coming around surely to pit this time. It's the money stop late in this race. Harvick stays out again. Sticking on the racetrack late, maybe trying to go for the overcut here. Seeing a lot of pit stops a little longer as drivers get repairs. 55 and 16 fixing up their race cars. Here is Harvick. Stewart leading this group off of the pits, I should say. Thinking about him. And the 20 of Harvick with traffic. A lot of drivers who are members of this top 10. Ricky Hendrick, another driver who sawed off the back end of his race car. 8 car of Martin Truex Jr. came in, amongst a couple others in the pit lane that time by. 77, 28, 17, and 0, as well as the 40 and 23. So Harvick pretty much the only car that stayed on the racetrack this last time through. Again, just trying to overcut it. Battle right in front of him is between Jr. and Wood. Harvick still on the racetrack. Going long is this 20 car. I mean, why not? Not looking too slow right now as he works to get past the 88 of Jr. and slips on past him on the front stretch. And Ricky Hendrick getting ran into again. This is the 6 of John Wood who just got into him. Kevin Harvick right between these two are now battling for position. Wood with a lot of damage on the front. We'll see if he has to pit for repairs. Goes off the track a little bit. Man, this 5 car has just been bullied tonight. Junior working to get around the 20. And gets back past that 20 car, who is still yet to pit. Wood having to duck into the pits despite the weird situation there. Was side by side with Hendrick. Kevin Harvick still has yet to pit.
I mean, you have to imagine that he's going to be coming in soon, right?
A couple of drivers have yet to pit still, though. There are some drivers who are still on the racetrack along with Harvick. Carl Edwards is one of them. Hank Parker Jr. in the 4 and Regan Smith in the 2. We saw a couple more duck in that time. That was Sadler, Hornaday, and Shepard. So that 20 of Harvick, again, going so long. Robbie Gordon in the 31 is still the net race leader right now. Tony Stewart probably going to be net P2 with how long the 20 has stayed out and how long he's been on those older tires doing longer lap times, and he will now duck into the pits. Finally, on lap number 35, brings it into the pit lane from first.
I believe this will mean that Hank Parker Jr. will obtain the lead.
he will actually pit with that 20 car, as did the 2 and the 97. John Wood back in the racetrack in the 6 without a hood after the damage from him running into the back of Ricky Hendrick, who has just been knocked around today. 4 tires and fuel for the 20 of Harvick. And Robbie Gordon, without a back end, back into the race lead. Tony Stewart will take second. Labonte for third, Gordon for fourth. A lot fresher tires on that 20, so we'll see how it plays out for him. But he's got a long way to go if he wants to even think about getting close to the win. And Robbie Gordon, despite adversity, has been on rails tonight and worked around the challenge from the 12. Managed to get repairs on it and hold the lead.
I mean, it took a Herculean effort just to get that 31's tire to touch some grass, and even then, the only thing Newman had to show for it was a 39th place finish in a DNF.
Punctured radiator for him. Harvick a long way off after trying to get back to up to speed on the colder tires, so he's a long way off. In the 6th position, I believe? No, 5th. 6th currently belonging to Boris Said in the 00. And 7th, John Andretti in the 21. 9th is currently, or 8th, excuse me, Kurt Busch. 9th belongs to Jimmy Johnson, who despite the damage repairs is still in the top 10. And Scott Wimmer is in 10th place in the 23. Ricky Hendrick working around all the damage and the relentless beatdowns he's been given today. He sits 11th. Casey Kane trying to overtake Brian Vickers for 13th right now behind him and the 88. Gets past that 44 car. Ricky Rudd in the top 15, which is a good bounce back after the D&Q on the oval last weekend. Having himself a good race. Jamie McMurray with damage in 16th. Christian Elder in P17 right now. Truex sits in 18th. Kyle Busch holding on to 19th after winning that Busch race on Saturday. Not really doing him any good right now. 20th is Matt Kenseth. Atwood 21st. Sprague 22nd. Sadler back there in 23rd. A long gap back to Edwards, who's 24th. Riggs P25. Bliss 26th. 27th. Mark Martin. 28th is Todd Bodine. 29th belonging to Greg Biffle after an overtake on Sterling Marlin, who's now 30th. 31st will be Burton. 32nd, Parker Jr. Reigns in 33rd. Smith 34th. 35th, Hornaday Jr. 36th, Jeff Green with a lot of damage on the right side of that race car. Not entirely sure when he got this, but the racetrack's still green afterwards. Oh yeah, ran it way wide, got into the tires, but NASCAR did not throw the caution for him with no traffic really anywhere near him. He sits 36th, 37th belongs to Morgan Shepherd, and 38th, John Wood, and Ryan Newman, the only DNF so far, he's 39th. 10 laps to go for Robbie Gordon, who is holding on to a massive lead right now and has absolutely dominated this race. Looking to win back-to-back here. Down under in Australia. Tony Stewart in the 42 car in 2nd place. Labonte holding on to 3rd and Gordon 4th. A long way back to Harvick, who rounds out your top 5 with 10 laps remaining here from Calder Park.
Now, do you think the 6 car is really going to have a potential to affect things this race?
Well, with how we've seen these guys race in braking zones, really just going to be a matter of Robbie Gordon trying to get around him cleanly and not overdrive directly behind the 6. Seems like it's really just been a challenge for guys to see their braking markers following guys all day long. 9 laps to go now. Robbie Gordon slowly catching up to that 6 car, who's half a second or so a lap slower than your race leader. Damage on the front of the 23, another overdrive here. I believe this was against Jimmy Johnson in the 48. Or maybe not. I guess I'm blind. Seems like there's a little bit here. Let's get a look against the 48 and 23 here. And yes, getting into him there in turn number 1 again. Just these guys really overdriving it into turn 1 a lot, mostly when they're directly behind people. Wimmer just got past that 48 car into the 9th position. A lot of guys battling here as Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets to work on Ricky Hendrick for the 11th spot. Casey Kane takes the opportunity to try to jump on the 5. As these guys battle for the last couple spots just outside the top 10. Kane with an opportunity towards turn 1 here. Junior giving a little bit of a bumper to the back of the 48. And 77 of Todd Bodine is blowing up on the front stretch. And this is going to bring out a yellow flag and change the course of this race. Caution flag will wave as Bodine will have to stop on the racetrack without a motor to bring it back to pit lane. John Wood will just stay on the lead lap here, and we will be under caution inside the final 10 laps. That shifts everything.
All right, crew chief. Do you pit? How far back until pitting becomes the play?
I think you pit if you're around maybe the back end of the top 20, a little further outside, but for the leaders, doesn't really make a lot of sense here. If you're a leader,
I mean, you have to believe, though, if Robbie Gordon goes into pit, everyone else. Oh.
But we will see what the play is here. Robbie Gordon leading the field. 7 laps to go at the moment, and it will be around 5 to go when we go back green.
I mean, we know at least Jimmy Johnson is tight on fuel. He hit about 2 or 3 laps earlier than the rest of the field.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see if anyone needs to pit to top off here, given that some of them were damage repair pit stops. Everybody had their hand forced. So we will see. Coming up on the pit lane in just a few corners here. It will be no pit stop for the race leader, Robbie Gordon. Meanwhile, back of the field, looking like everyone's going to stay out here. Tell you what, one car with a lot of damage there was the 40. Jamie McMurray had a little bit of a dent on the left side of his car. And man, that thing is really, really screwed up. Yeah, it just looked like he overdrove. We saw this call to caution in heavy traffic earlier in the race, but NASCAR not throwing it here. But we get the caution anyway, just a couple of laps later thanks to that 77 car. We'll take you to intermission here from Calder Park late in this race. Robbie Gordon leading, but can he hold on to it with the late race restart yet to come? back from intermission here at Calder Park as we get set for the late race restart. It will be 5 laps to go on the start here with Robbie Gordon in the 31, your race leader. Tony Stewart, who's been trying to run him down for the better part of 20 laps, sits in the second position. And we are all set to go here. Pace car off to the left. Field set to go here. 5 laps to settle it as we head towards the restart box with that 31 car who has led the majority of this race in first, and we are green. Fantastic getaway by Robbie Gordon on the start there. Stewart pulling back towards him as they head towards turn number 1. Kurt Busch going to get underneath of Boris Said. That's for the 6th spot. Seeing these guys on the back end of the top 10 go side by side again. Stewart a little squirrely there from second place. Doesn't have a lot of time to work with. Jimmy Johnson looking to pick up a spot on the 00. And does so. Johnson again moving way forwards on the start here. He's into 7th, starting from P10. Andretti looking to move past the 00 car here. Whole field stacked up behind him for the most part. Everybody's still clean in the back end. Gordon, a comfortable margin, 4 to go. Does Stewart have anything for that 31 car? Andretti and Said still battling. Earnhardt Jr. a part of this mix for the 8th spot. It'll be 9th between him and the 00. Trying to move past Said for that position. Hanging with him through 2 and 3, headed through 4 and 5 now. And Earnhardt Jr. up a position now. Past the 00. Kane trying to move into the top 10. This is for 11th between him and Wimmer. And Kane gets that spot into the 11th place with Boris Said in P10 in front of him. Robbie Gordon checking out from the lead with 3 laps left. Ran it a little wide there in turn 1, allows Stewart to gain a little bit of time back. You can't get complacent now. Better through 2 and 3, but Stewart looked a little quicker. Still clean and green in the back of the field. Headed towards just 2 laps to go as Tony Stewart is doing everything in his power to run down that 31, but Robbie Gordon has been flawless all night long. 2 laps left here from Calder Park. Gordon still pulling away, half a second faster that last lap. Andretti putting a bit of a bumper to Jimmy Johnson for 7th. And he turned him. Johnson through the grass. Somehow held onto it. Merges in front of the 21 still. Man, that was a great save by Jimmy Johnson, who almost got turned by Andretti. I have no idea how he kept that thing together.
And how he kept that thing in front of the 21 is even more impressive.
Coming to the white flag this time as Robbie Gordon has a big lead over the 42 of Tony Stewart and has absolutely dominated this race. Trying to close it out and get back-to-back wins. As he runs with a big margin. Got very wide there in turn 1, but kept it on the tarmac. Just got to keep it on the road here. And did so. Just one more trouble spot. The braking zone of turn 6. And Gordon into it. Will get through just fine. One on the oval already. Flexing some muscle here as he is going to come through the final 2 corners and win back-to-back races here down under in Australia. Robbie Gordon is going to win it. Back-to-back wins for the 31 team as he puts on a clinic on the road course. Taking home his 2nd win this season as Tony Stewart will come home just shy in 2nd place. And rounding out the rest of the top 10, it's 18, 24, 20, 01, 48, 21, 88, and 38 as Kane made an overtake on Boris Said for the final spot in the top 10 on the last lap. A fun race all the way around.
Perhaps that little incident earlier on between the 21 and the 48 was some unfinished business from Bristol.
Could be. Interesting to see that between those guys. But the story of the day, Robbie Gordon, your winner. Already just 7 races into the season, and we've seen back-to-back winners twice already and back-to-back times. Jimmy Johnson winning races, his 2nd and 3rd wins in races 4 and 5, and Robbie Gordon now winning back-to-back races in 6 and 7 across the Pacific down in Australia. And he takes the checkered flag here tonight. And the only driver who really even had anything for him today was Ryan Newman, and he took himself out very early in the running in this one. But that'll do it for coverage here in Calder Park as Robbie Gordon sweeps the Calder races, winner of the Cashies 400K here tonight. Next week, we'll be taking an off week, but it'll be race number 8 for Cup. After that, we head to Talladega for the Aaron's 499. Always a fun one at Talladega for some plate racing action. We will see you then. On behalf of Braden in the booth with me tonight, race number 7 concluded. We'll catch you then. And as always, have yourself a good one.